Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and it's the last day of June, which means it's the last day of Pride Month, so of course I'm gonna make another video about LGBTQ plus themes and characters. And at first I thought about maybe I'm gonna talk about my favorite LGBTQ plus characters, but then I wasn't sure if I could come up with like a good list. And then I thought about how about I just talk about some shows that feature LGBTQ plus characters. So this is where we are now. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite shows which have good LGBTQ plus representation. And that means they feature at least several LGBTQ plus characters and or address LGBTQ plus themes in their stories or in their characters. And yeah, you'll notice that I don't think any of these shows I'm listing are like specifically about LGBTQ plus issues. They are mostly going to be shows that are mainly about something else but have LGBTQ plus characters and or maybe side storylines about such kind of issues. But I know that there are many more shows out there that specifically dive into LGBTQ plus themes, but I haven't watched them. Shows like, I don't know, Sex Education, for example, comes to mind, which is a show I really still need to watch. So yeah, this is mostly going to be a list of shows that I really like just in general, because I think they're great shows, but they also happen to have LGBTQ plus representation. But this is a long introduction, so let's just get on with it. The first show I would like to talk about is DC's Legends of Tomorrow. This show is absolutely wild. It's so ridiculous. I watched the show for the first time last year during the first big lockdown where I live. Because I was really into getting into the John Constantine character. And I know he had his own show, but it got cancelled. But then I found out, oh, his character actually gets picked up in DC's Legends of Tomorrow. So I started watching that. Even though Constantine doesn't appear until like season 3/4. But doesn't matter, because that show is effing amazing. So DC's Legends of Tomorrow is basically a huge, gigantic, ridiculous, cheesy, campy time travel show. It throws together a bunch of different DC characters, some of who you may know from other DC shows. So it's part of like, I think what's called the Arrowverse, even though I have literally watched no other show in the Arrowverse, if I may say so. And some people have said, well, maybe you should watch some of the other shows so you understand Legends of Tomorrow a bit better. Not true. You can easily get into Legends of Tomorrow, I think, without having seen any of the other shows. So sure, there are some crossover episodes here and there that are a bit hard to understand if you don't watch the other shows, but nah. So my point is, not only is the show absolutely ridiculous and amazing, it also has fantastic LGBTQ plus representation. There are so many queer characters on this show. I just love how casual it is. So the thing about the show is that it's about this crew on that time travel spaceship called the Wave Rider, and it's not always the same crew. You have like 2 or 3 characters that stay for several seasons, but there's always a bit of like a rotation going on. Like some characters get switched out and they come back later, or some other characters leave and someone new takes over. So you have a lot of good characters to choose from. So for example, what you could call main character, or like the leader of the Legends, is Sarah Lance. And Sarah Lance is a bloody badass. And apart from that, she's also bisexual. So we see her having multiple relationships, sometimes also just one-night stands with both men and women. She even, I think, has a one-night stand with John Constantine in one of his first episodes in season 3. And starting with season 3/4, she gets involved in a huge relationship with Ava, and it's like one of the main relationships on the show, and they are just such a wholesome, good couple. So yeah, and that's only like one of them or two of the main characters. Obviously, we have John Constantine, the whole reason. He's the whole reason why I started watching the show in the first place. John Constantine in general is one of my favorite LGBTQ plus characters. John Constantine is bisexual, and he hasn't unfortunately always been depicted as bisexual in like his own TV show or in the movie with Keanu Reeves. But in this show, you bet that man is portrayed as bisexual, and they play the hell out of it, and I love it. He even gets like a huge important storyline. I'm not sure if it was season 4 or 5, which is about him and his boyfriend. He like casually flirts with some members of the crew. He like I said, has like one night stand with Sarah Lawrence when they first meet. In the current season, he has like a more or less permanent girlfriend, and just wonderful. So we get like a bunch of whole other characters who are part of the crew on the Wave Rider, who are like gay or bisexual. We get some supernatural characters as well. Like there's this more shape-shifting supernatural creature called Charlie in one of the seasons. Who is like she's a shapeshifter, like she's gender fluid, and I just love how Legends of Tomorrow just doesn't give a shit about anything. They just do their thing, and being queer or anything like that is never really a big issue in the show. And if it is, it's portrayed as something very like natural and normal, and it's okay, that sort of thing. And in general, Legends of Tomorrow is just a fantastic show. It's absolutely bonkers. If you are interested in like seeing a comic book show that fully knows it's a comic book show and just goes out there doing absolutely ridiculous nonsense, go and watch it. It's a fantastic show. The next show I would like to talk about is more in the horror genre, and if I say that, you know very well which show I'm talking about, namely Hannibal. So, I've talked about Hannibal several times on this channel, and if you know me, you know very well that Hannibal is one of my absolute favorite TV shows ever. I'm just a huge fan of the whole Hannibal Lecter character and world in general. I absolutely adore the books, and I love the movies, naturally, with Anthony Hopkins. And then I watched this show where they really go into detail exploring not only Hannibal Lecter but also Will Graham, who is the main character of the show. So it starts out with Will Graham being an FBI agent, more or less, who's a bit unstable, but he's called in to like solve cases. And Hannibal Lecter is sort of assigned to be his therapist to make sure he's not going off the rails. But naturally, if Hannibal Lecter is assigned to be your therapist, you definitely go off the rails. Sexuality is not necessarily a major theme of the story in this show, of the characters, but it does play a bit more of a significant role as the show goes on. Especially between the relationship between Hannibal and Will is naturally the main focus of the show. And if you start out watching the show and you're thinking, is this a little bit gay? Are they doing this on purpose? Yes, they are doing this on purpose. So there have been interviews by the maker of the show, Brian Fuller, also by the actors, confirming it. Yes, this is meant to be that they are actually interested in one another, not just on like a platonic level where they think, oh, this person's interesting. No, this is meant, like the homoerotic connotations that the show takes on in later episodes is fully on purpose, and we get this, especially from Hannibal's side, we get this whole that he becomes obsessed with Will and like kind of falls in love with him, and we get Will doubting his relationship with Hannibal. Like, he's really fascinated by his man, even though he very well knows he shouldn't be. But he's also weirdly attracted to what's going on there, even though he has some other relationships on the side where he knows this is actually much more healthy and I shouldn't be into the cannibal serial murderer, but it's kind of happening. And I always cite this one conversation where Will flat out asks one of the characters who knows Hannibal very well, where he's trying to ask, is Hannibal in love with me? And Gillian Anderson, who was in the show, basically says, yes, he is. So there you go. But we also get some other queer characters. And what I love about it, that this show doesn't make a big deal out of it. Like, one of the main characters in the show is Alana Bloom, who in the books is actually male, but in this version is female. And up until like season 2 or 3, you're thinking, oh, she's just straight, because that's what you kind of assume the default is, which I know is a bit problematic to think. Since up until that point, she's only been really shown to be attracted to men, but then she gets a whole storyline character arc where she becomes involved with another woman, and it's not an issue. It's not an issue at all. I love that. She just happens to suddenly fall for that woman. She's into her, and they have a very passionate relationship that even gets explored in the later episodes of the show. And you're like, well, that happened a little bit out of nowhere, but it's like, yeah, sure, why not? And I just love that. I just love how it's not a big deal in the show. It's never like, oh, this is weird for Hannibal and Will because it's kind of gay, or why the hell is Alana Bloom suddenly bisexual? That's never an issue. It's just a fact, and it kind of plays with you, especially with Alana. I think it kind of plays with this assumption that you think, oh, well, she's straight because that's what you assume she is, since that's sort of the default. And then they're just like, yeah, no, she is now in a relationship with another woman, and it's a very, very cute relationship, and you're like, oh, yeah, sure, why not? And actually, since this is a show about serial killers, you can imagine that queer themes sort of pop up everywhere, so in regards to like analyzing these killers and these people they're following, and how it not only relates to the people they're trying to find, but also how it relates to themselves. And it's all about like the psychological relationships these people have with each other. And like I said, this isn't necessarily like the main theme isn't exploring how gay are Hannibal and Will for each other, but it's just about exploring this very weird but strangely interesting relationship these two men have, without necessarily pointing out and saying, oh, look, it's gay. That's not what it's about. It's really just about exploring interesting relationships between two fucked up characters. The next show I would like to talk about is also not a big surprise, because I think it's the show most people came here for on this channel in the first place, namely Mr. Robot. So, yeah, Mr. Robot, I love that show, in case you couldn't tell. It's one of the best TV shows I have ever seen. And again, LGBTQ plus themes aren't necessarily like a major issue that's addressed in the show. But it does get addressed through various characters in the show who are all amazing, if you ask me. Who comes to mind first is naturally the main antagonist of the show, who is White Rose. White Rose is a transgender woman, and she is like the main foil for Elliot, the main character of the show, who, just like Elliot, is all about computer stuff and hacking, and especially about like the exploration of time. And she starts out presenting as a man, hiding the fact that she's actually a woman to like most of the outside world, which has to do like with politics. But when she's in her element, when she's actually presenting as who she is, when it's all about the hacking and presenting her plans for the world and all that. She is presenting as her true, authentic self. And damn, she's so good. She's so badass. She has such a commanding presence, I think. And it's just chilling how she is at the same time. You're thinking she's the main villain, she's the main antagonist, you should absolutely hate her. But on the other hand, like, she's so cool and so interesting. And at first you don't really know too much about her, how she came to where she is now, but her life actually gets explored in the final season, how she came to realize that she is trans and how her transition went down. All of that gets explored in season 4, and it's such a gut-wrenching and emotional story. And that episode is so good where that gets explored. And White Rose in general is just a fantastic character. Like, you can't hate her. She is the main antagonist, and she does some awful things to Elliot and the people around him. But the way she's written and the way she's portrayed is just so amazing. It's so interesting. Again, I like that it's mostly not a big issue that she is trans. Like I said, we do explore her transition and her background story in one of the later episodes, but honestly, up until that point, I hadn't really thought about it too much. It was just like, oh, okay, so she's a trans woman. Cool, interesting. I like, sure, representation. It's good, it's fantastic. But again, I like how it's not a big deal. It's not like, oh, she's evil because she's a trans woman, that sort of thing. That's not happening at all. It's not like Elliot ever questions the bad guy, the bad woman, in that case, because she's trans. Like, nothing like that ever happens, and none of that. And some of the other main characters we get in the show are also queer. So, for example, Elliot's sister is also bisexual. In fact, one of her main relationships is to another woman, and that relationship is, oh, I love it so much. I just love it so much. She gets involved with a policewoman named Dom, who is a lesbian, and their relationship, it's just like a continuous up and down. You can tell they sort of have to find each other because Dom is is from the police, but Darlene is sort of doing all this illegal hacking stuff, but then you can tell that they are really, really attracted to one another, and great. And I was just all over that relationship throughout the last couple of episodes. And it's just great. And again, it's not a big deal at all. Neither for Darlene nor Dom that they are queer, and I love that. And another side character also plays an important role in the show is Tyrell, who is also bisexual. He's married to a woman, but we also see him have sexual relationships with other men. He also admits to being in love with Elliot at one point. And again, it's just not a big deal at all. And I just love that. I would argue that Elliot might be queer somewhere as well. Personally, I like to think Elliot is somewhere on the asexual spectrum. Somewhere. It's not confirmed necessarily. Like, Elliot's sexual life is not really an important point to bring up in the show. Like, I think he has, it's mentioned he has like casual sex with one of his best friends in the first season, and then he has sex with another lady in season 4, which is more out of convenience for his plan because he doesn't know what else to do. Other than that, it's not really a big thing for Elliot, which is why I personally think he's maybe somewhere on the ace or even arrow spectrum. But that's only personal interpretation, if you ask me. But again, this show features a bunch of queer secondary and main characters, and again, I just love how casual it is and how it's not a big deal at all, and we just get to have these interesting characters in a very fascinating TV show, and they just happen to be queer. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is not one series, it's just a group of people who do a show on the internet, namely Critical Role. Okay, so I should point out that I'm probably mainly talking here about Campaign 2, since that is what I've watched the most of. I've only seen a couple of episodes from Campaign 1, and I've watched a couple of their one-shots as well. But, so, Critical Role, in case you didn't know, is a web series on Twitch and YouTube, where a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors sit around and play Dungeons and Dragons. And they play Dungeons and Dragons in a very serious and engaging way. As you can imagine, with voice actors, you get fantastic characters with fantastic acting, and they include queer characters so naturally and casually in their stories. It's absolutely amazing. So again, I'm mainly talking about Campaign 2 here, but Campaign 2 has a bunch of queer characters. Like, my favorite character in Campaign 2, for example, is Caleb, who, as we find out later, is attracted to both men and women. We have 2 lesbian characters, Bo and Yasha. We get Molly, who is, I think, bisexual, pansexual, and also gender fluid. He's just absolutely fabulous. He's just out there. And then we also get Caduceus, who I talked about in a previous video, who is Arrow Ace, and he's just fantastic. And then we have Matthew Mercer playing a bunch of NPCs who are all over the queer spectrum. And again, it's never a big deal, and I love that. Like, I don't think any of the real life voice actors are queer. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I just love how open they are and how they just go out there and have no problem with portraying like people who identify differently, like on the gender spectrum or on the sexuality spectrum. Like, they just do it. And it's not a big deal at all. And I can imagine they role play this with each other, and it's not a big deal at all. It shows like sometimes they giggle when they're flirting and stuff like that, but it's always like in character and it works for the people, and it's never uncomfortable. It always feels very, very natural. It all feels very included within the story, and you have people from all over the umbrella spectrum in that show. And with Critical Role, you just have so much to choose from. Like, you have 2 campaigns with more than 100 episodes, each of them like at least 3 to 4 hours long, which I know seems awfully frightening when you want to get into it. Don't worry, I have a D&D alternative down the line for you on this list, don't worry. But yeah, if like me, you're a huge D&D geek and you're maybe a bit more into podcasts, I mean, you've probably heard of Critical Role at this point. So I don't really have to tell you much. But yeah, again, I just love how casual the representation here is, that it's not a big deal at all for these people to act out or act as people who identify differently to them. And yeah, Critical. Go and check them out. They have 2 huge campaigns, but they also do a bunch of one-shots, which maybe you want to check out first, so you can find out if that's something you could get into. But definitely give Critical Role a watch. So next show I want to talk about is The Umbrella Academy, which again is not a huge surprise, but I want to put it on here because I love The Umbrella Academy. I reviewed both seasons back when they came out. I think they're currently working on season 3, and I think they actually, what they did was, I think they actually changed some of the sexualities for the show. Like, I've read the comics, but it's been a while, and I don't think in the comic books any of these characters are queer, at least like canonically. And in the show they just play around with it, and I love that. Obviously the most famous example, most popular example is number 4, Klaus, who has a whole story arc about going back into the past and falling in love with another man, but then it doesn't go well, and he's sort of traumatized by it and tries to get over it, but naturally there's also time travel involved, especially in the 2nd season, and yeah, he just gets this whole storyline about being in love with another man. And I think also Klaus's gender expression is very atypical. Like, it's not a stereotypically manly, and I love how they play around with it. Like, he's very extravagant and likes to play around with his he's just in general very eccentric, as you can probably tell just by watching one trailer about the Umbrella Academy. Then we also get my other favorite character in the Umbrella Academy, Vanya, who is played by Elliot Page. And Vanya in the first season has a relationship with a man, but a lot of people, I think, back when season 1 came out, were like, she has some queer vibes going on. And indeed, in the second season, Vanya actually has a whole storyline about falling in love with another woman. And it's absolutely precious. And again, it just feels natural. It just feels natural. Even, sure, in the second season, it's all about like traveling to the past, and you get this whole, oh, can we do this? It's like, I don't know, it's the 60s, I can't remember what times it was. But they don't beat around the bush too much, and I love how, again, they don't act it up as being this huge thing. They just do it, and it never feels weird, especially for like the siblings. It never feels weird. They're like, oh cool, you're in love with this other person who happens to be the same gender or whatever, do it, I'm happy for you. And again, I just love how casual it is for these characters. And a bit like Legends of Tomorrow, Umbrella Academy is just like an absolutely ridiculous, overly dramatic show about superheroes, but it's maybe more grown up. It's like a bit darker and a bit more dramatic. It's about like dysfunctional family relationships and about these 7 siblings coming back together after years and realizing they don't actually really like each other, and they're realizing, oh, maybe our dad was a bit of a wanker. And again, it's not a major theme. It's like the LGBTQ plus themes are important for like Klaus and Vanya specifically, because they have character arcs that revolve around that. Like Vanya specifically, like I said, in the second season, that's like her whole character arc that she gets, like discovering this new relationship with another woman. With Klaus, I think it's a little more casual. Like it is like more treated as like a character defining moment that he finds this man he falls in love with. But for him, it's not about the fact that he fell in love with another man and oh, it's gay. Ooh, like that's not what it's about for Klaus. For Klaus, it's just about that he fell in love with another human being, and he had this huge, like he was really attracted to him, and they had a passionate relationship, and then things went wrong. Went wrong. God, words. Things didn't go well, and that's what has sort of marked him as a person, defines him as a person, especially like in the second season. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the characters in the third season. Like some people have speculated, since the actor portraying Vanya has since come out as trans and uses he/him pronouns, that some people have said maybe Vanya's also gonna have a storyline that reflects maybe something about her gender identity. We don't know. It would certainly be very interesting to see, but we'll see if they include anything like that, and we'll see if Klaus gets maybe another relationship, or any of the other the other siblings are mostly portrayed as straight up until now, and have relationships with people of the opposite gender or with each other, which I know is weird, but if you watch the show, it makes sense. But I can definitely see that the exploration of LGBTQ plus themes is definitely going to be an important part of the Umbrella Academy going forward. So the next show series I want to talk about is the D&D alternative I mentioned when I talked about Critical Role, namely the Ox Venture. So the Ox Venture, it's actually 2 YouTube channels, namely Outside Xbox and Outside Extra, who are my absolute favorite all-time YouTubers. No joking. I watch these people every day and I love them so much. And yeah, they're just great content creators. And they mainly they talk about video games, actually. It's a group of 5 people. and they do like let's plays and lists about new video games that are coming out. And a couple of years ago, they decided as a sort of celebration thing for like, was it 1 million subscribers or something like that? They decided let's play D&D for the first time. And since then, they have developed this semi-regular D&D series called the Oxventure. So their group is called the Oxventurer Guild, and they go on very, very chaotic adventures. So if Critical Role is like your very serious, hardcore role-playing, high fantasy D&D show you like to watch, the Oxventure is like your absolutely chaotic, nonsensical, not entirely serious D&D adventure. It's like if chaotic in general, the chaotic alignment was a D&D show, it's the Oxventure. And I love that. These are the only two, like Critical Role and the Oxventure are the only two D&D shows I watch, because, you know, they balance each other out perfectly. I've got, on the one hand, I got this very serious D&D show that is Critical, and then on the other hand, I have like this absolutely ridiculously bonkers show with the Oxventures. And again, with the Oxventures, is like this group of people, these 5 people, are so amazing and supportive of the LGBTQ plus community. Like they do charity streams and for Pride Month and that sort of stuff, and they're very supportive, even though I think none of them themselves are actually members of the LGBTQ plus community, but they are wonderful allies. And that is also represented in their D&D characters, who I think are by default almost all bisexual, and it's played played more with played around more with the male characters. There's this wonderful episode you could watch, which is called Sect Appeal, which came out last year. And basically go ahead and watch that episode. It's all about the Oxventurers flirting with every NPC they meet, regardless of gender, and it's just absolutely fantastic. Like we get rogues flirting with other rogues. We have the Dragonborn Paladin being like, I'm in love with that person, because why not? I don't care. We have the half-orc bard being sort of having a crush on like the main antagonist lady, but occasionally also being like, I sing a love song for that guy because I think he's cool, even though they've met him like literally 5 minutes ago. And you have the 2 female characters being like, sure, we're running with it, we're very supportive. And it's just a whole lot of fun to watch. It's way, it's easier to get into than Critical, because the episodes are they're very episodic. They only do like one separate adventure. It usually lasts for like 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. And then they go on and do the next adventure. Like they are only now recently getting into like more longer story arcs and storylines. So some of the previous episodes are very easy to get into. They like usually introduce their characters. You get a pretty good grip of who they are very early on, and then you can just go and have some fun with absolutely ridiculous D&D nonsense. And again, they just have what I love about it, they just have fun with it. Like they start out as a gang who has never played D&D before, but they're having so much fun, and then they just like go on and absolutely ruin the DM's plans, I think. And just again, I just love how casual it is and how much fun they're just having, and they're flirting with NPCs left and right and doing absolutely ridiculous nonsense. And it's just played off as something the characters do. It's played off as something the players want to do because they think it's funny, because they think this is what makes the story interesting. And I just love that, how casual it is, and how supportive this group of people actually is of the LGBTQ plus community. And that again, for them, it's not a big deal to play their characters with a different sexual identity that's different to their own sexual identity, maybe. And I just love that. So yeah, go ahead and watch the Oxventure. Go and watch Outside Xbox and Outside Extra in general. They make very, very good content. Okay, so the last 2 shows I want to talk about I have to talk about sort of in unison, because they are made by the same people, because they star the same group of people. So people outside of the UK might become a little confused by this, but there is this little show called Horrible Histories, and Horrible Histories had this gang of actors. I think they're like 6 actors, and they are a very tightly knit group, and they are a wonderful group of comedic actors who are well known for doing Horrible Histories, so which is like a sketch comedy about teaching kids about history. They made that show, then they made like a movie about Shakespeare. It was very funny, and then they went on to produce some of their own shows, and these 2 shows I would like to talk about. So the first one they did was Yonderland. So Yonderland is, again, an absolutely ridiculous, bonkers fantasy Muppets show, which stars these 6 people from Horrible Histories. And it's about Debbie, who's a human woman in the normal world, and she gets dragged into Yonderland, which is it's kind of like Narnia. Like, she gets literally dragged through the broom closet, and she ends up in Yonderland, and ends up having to save this fantasy world, because she's apparently the chosen one. And yeah, it's like this weird fantasy world where humans and fantasy creatures and Muppets live together side by side. And Debbie goes on classic fantasy chosen one adventures, and tries to help the people in Yonderland from getting taken over by the big bad people who want to rule the world, naturally. So what's so peculiar about Yonderland, or what the Horrible Histories crew in general does, is that they constantly rotate characters. So you have, in Wonderland, you have the one female cast member playing the chosen one. Like, she plays Debbie, that's her role. And all of the other guys in the group play every other character in the show. Like, they constantly rotate around, like, play different kinds of characters. Like, they usually have like at least 2 or 3 different characters in one episode they play. So like, they have this group of elders they play, which are more or less sort of their main characters they get to play, but then they play like at least 2 or 3 other secondary characters in that particular episode, and then it just goes on. Again, they are very casual about including LGBTQ plus representation in their work, because, you know, you just have these male actors and they play all the other people, so they're very casual about, oh, these 2 guys are in a relationship with one another, these 2 guys are casually flirting off screen, or these 2 people randomly kiss, because why shouldn't they? And again, it's just very casual. It's never addressed as being a big thing, and they play around with it. They have a lot of fun with like playing with gender and how they present and that sort of stuff, because again, it's this very wild fantasy world which is occupied by humans, weird supernatural fantasy creatures, and Muppets. So you can just go absolutely wild. Like, even the weird Muppets get some LGBTQ plus representation here and there, and it's just all over the place. In the 3rd season, you have Stephen Fry as a guest star, who, as you may or may not know, Stephen Fry himself is also gay, so that's cool when you have these kinds of actors. And again, I think this is like a group of actors who themselves are not members of the queer community as far as I know, but they are just wonderful allies and just have no problem with this at all. Like, for them, it's very natural to just include these weird characters and be like, sure, they're gay, like, sure, that guy likes cross-dressing. It's not weird. Like, it's never weird. Because in Yonderland, everything is weird, so nothing ever feels out of character or unnatural or anything like that. And I just love how casual it is and how much they play around with it, because you have all these guys just playing wildly different characters. So Yonderland is sort of like their first big show they did after Horrible Histories, and after Yonderland, they started producing Ghosts. And more people need to talk about Ghosts. Ghosts is one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. I think it's getting an American remake later this year. I'm not looking forward to it because why would you? The British original is right there and it's absolutely hilarious. So in Ghosts, Ghosts is a little bit less ridiculous, I think, than Yonderland, and you have again this crew, this original crew from Horrible Histories, playing, as the title of the show suggests, a bunch of ghosts. So it's about this couple moving into this big old house, and then one of them has an accident. I think she actually gets pushed out of the window by one of the ghosts. And she has like a near-death experience, and that makes her see the ghosts. And she's the only one who can see the ghosts. And hijinks ensue, as you can imagine. Like, the ghosts are like, why the hell are these people in our house? We don't want them in our house. And then they're like, oh no, that woman can see us. What do we do? And then, yeah, it's all about house renovations, relationship issues, ghost shenanigans, and all that sort of stuff. And we gradually find out about who these ghosts actually are. We don't find out about all of them immediately. So, like, there are currently, I think there's, series 2 came out a while ago, and then a Christmas special. And, like, we slowly find out about the background stories of these characters throughout the show. So it's mostly about like just the ghosts meddling with this couple's life in that house, but naturally they slowly settle into like more of a daily routine, and the ghosts get used to the new company, and it's about seeing how the ghosts deal with the humans now in the house, and how these ghosts actually get along with each other, how they maybe have met, or how they became ghosts in the first place. It's just very good fun. And it's on the list here because, not so much as when they did Yonderland, is this about, you know, the characters playing a bunch of different people and just naturally developing a bunch of LGBTQ plus characters, because that's just how it happens when you have a bunch of people playing different characters. But it does have a couple of either LGBTQ plus issues that get addressed in some of the storylines, or also in some of the characters. The main character here being the captain. And the captain is just a wonderful character. So he's like this military leader who died presumably sometime around the Second World War. And you can tell from episode 1 onwards, just immediately there's something going on with him, but he doesn't want to like fully admit to it. Like, he keeps checking out guys, and he's like, I'm not looking, no. And he's like, and it's very funny because it seems to be obvious to everyone else that the captain is gay, but he naturally, since he's from a time when this was taboo, he's very reserved about it and doesn't really want to admit to it. But I just love how the character gets played and how he's written, because it's, on the one hand, it is played as a bit of a joke that like he keeps checking out guys, or that he makes insinuating comments that he later on realizes sounded kind of gay, so he's like, no, I did not say that. Well, on the other hand, it's just like part of his character, and that's not all he is. Like, he just happens to be this older ghost from a time when being gay was seen as a taboo, but that's not all he is. Like, he is sort of finds himself to be sort of the leader of the group of the ghosts, and like he's very assertive, and he's always the one who wants to make plans and dish out orders, that sort of thing. So there's a lot going on with this character, but what I like about him is that they never make fun of him because he's gay. It's just funny because he tries to hide it, even though it is very obvious to everyone else around him. And he even gets, I think it's in series 2, a very interesting and sweet episode where we find out about his background story when he was still alive and lived at that house. Which I don't want to spoil too much, but it's a very emotional and very sweet background story that he gets that explores his character in a very interesting way, I think. And the Christmas special has a storyline actually that is about a lesbian couple getting married at the house, and everyone is like sort of excited, oh my god, there's gonna be a wedding, cool. And some of the characters are like, oh, it's two women. Okay, cool, but wedding, everyone's excited. But then you have maybe some of the more old school characters, especially the female ghost character, Fanny, who's a bit more like old-fashioned, and she used to be the owner of the house, and she's like, how dare you have two women get married inside my house? That is absolute taboo, it should never happen. And then you explore like the fact that these are ghosts who have been around for a very, very long time, and some of them are still clinging on to these very old-fashioned ideas that were around when they were alive. And the Christmas special sort of tries to point that out, playing with the idea, okay, yeah, some of the ghosts are cool with that because they either haven't been dead for too long, that they died around the time when being gay was already considered normal, or that they have been dead for so long that they're just fine with everything because they're just so old and wise. Or like some of the ghosts are just fine with it because they're cool. But then again, you have like Fanny, a kind of character who's very old, who's a bit more old-fashioned and has to sort of adapt to modern times and slowly come around to the idea that things have changed and this is now considered something completely normal and just how people are, how people live. And I like that the show, on the one hand, is absolutely just a comedic show that is out there doing its very funny, ridiculous ghost stuff, but on the other hand, doesn't forget that these are ghosts from another time who maybe are not used to the new things that have developed in society throughout the years. And I like that they don't forget that and address it through the characters and some of the storylines, but that it's never treated as something bad. It's never treated, like I said with the captain, for example, it's never treated as a joke that he is queer. It's like you're always laughing with the characters. You're never laughing at the characters. Same with what happens in Yonderland. It's just weird because it's weird. It's not like you're laughing because, oh, it's queer and that's the joke. That's never the joke. Like, you're always laughing with these characters. And yeah, just go out there and watch go and watch everything the Histories crew has done, because they are a fantastic group of actors with wonderful chemistry and absolutely hilarious comedic writing. And it just shines in everything they do, and I'm looking forward to having a series 3 of Ghosts hopefully very soon, and hopefully the American remake doesn't ruin anything. Okay, so this has been my list for my favorite shows with LGBTQ plus representation. Like I said at the beginning, I know that there are many more shows out there that have LGBTQ plus characters or that deal more directly with LGBTQ plus issues. That I know that they're out there, but I haven't seen them yet, or I've heard of them, but I haven't seen them yet. But that's why I have you do tell me down in the comments below what some of your favorite LGBTQ plus shows are, or what some of your favorite queer characters are in fiction. Naturally, I would love to hear from you, or if you have any comments in regards to the shows I've mentioned here, write it down there. I'll read everything you write. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for joining me during Pride Month. Naturally, this is not going to be the last time I talk about LGBTQ plus issues. You can expect many more videos in that regard. But for now, this is the last day of Pride Month. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done that. And I'll see all of you next time. Goodbye.